Cool. Dimitra, welcome to the Offers End podcast. It is such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to speak to you after a long time now.
Yes, last time we spoke was it was actually quite a different world. I think that the pandemic was just in its early stages and early phases, so it's like a few months later. So it's pretty cool to talk to you after such a long time. But before we dive into our sort of set of questions and stuff, there's a couple of questions I have prepared, which you haven't been able to prepare for, but they are very, very easy and very simple, and should just give some insight into who you are and the kinds of things that interest you. So don't think about it too hard, and just sort of say what comes to mind. But your first question is: after a really tiring day, how do you spend your evening?
Ooh, with my family, spending my time with my son is the biggest pleasure for me. Um, if time permits and he goes to bed early, then most of the times I try to keep up with my reading on normally a business book.
So on that question, then, what's a really good book you've read recently?
I really like the Radical Candor. Um,
Do you remember who that's by?
oh no, I'm very bad with names.
Ah, I will drop the link in the description. But I've heard about that book before, so I think I should add it back to my list. And then tea or coffee.
Uh, when I work, coffee. When I don't work, none of the above.
Cool. So basically, just coffee. Nice. um, and what is something you wish existed but doesn't?
um, time, more time.
More time. Oh my gosh, more hours in a day.
Exactly.
uh, I always wondered if we could like push out the Earth's axis or the Earth's orbit, whether we'd actually get more time. Like, I wonder if technology will get to a point where we can safely move because I know we're in like a very specific green zone, but that we can move the like Earth to get more time. But also, I don't know if we want to do that. But I just had this thought the other day, that everyone talks about having more time, and maybe that is
It's
something
it's a
that happens in the
luxury.
future.
It's a
Yeah.
luxury.
And then last question: what thing that cost you less than €50 was the best investment most recently?
Well, probably this thing.
Yeah.
It's the handiest thing you can have in a warm day. And gives you a bit of a healthy rhythm.
Yeah, I think so. Just for the audio version, that was a water bottle, and I think it makes such a difference to be able to have as much water as you need in one container on your desk, because it's quite a what do you call, like, a deterrent to have to keep filling up a small glass.
It's a reminder for myself to maintain to take care of myself.
Absolutely.
Sometimes I don't do that.
But cool. So thanks for introing yourself a little bit. It's nice to get some insight into the guest we have on the show today. But just as a little bit of an introduction into yourself and your company, could you tell me a little bit about ReceiptBank? So, like, what kind of problem does it solve?
ReceiptBank is a fintech company. It is based in UK and it operates in multiple countries. It offers tools for accountants to service and help small medium businesses to become financially fit. And it operates in the countries of US, Canada, South Africa, France, and of course the UK as well. Um, yeah, and recently I joined them as an interim chief product officer. ReceiptBank is a growth state scale up company. It's actually um, uh, uh, it is ReceiptBank is a company which uh, has a particular growth in multiple regions, and also extends now their product portfolio uh, through through um, um, through, for example, currently a recent acquisition that they did of Xavi Analytics. So it's a very interesting landscape for product strategists to work in.
Absolutely, and like you said, you've just recently joined, and this amidst a global pandemic and having to do it all remotely and sort of meeting a team that's quite big. That must have been quite an extensively tough few weeks, and that's actually like why we haven't spoken for so long, because you've been so busy with that.
That's correct. So last time we spoke, I was having the role of VP Product Operations at a company called Binder, which is based in the Netherlands. And since then, I did take the role of Chief Product Officer with ReceiptBank, and doing that remotely with indeed the size of the team and the obvious complexity in a multi-product company. Obviously, that adds to the challenges you need to be face day to day. So
Absolutely.
onboarding was interesting, and obviously understanding the context of the company was interesting. The team, all of it actually.
So just briefly, like, what does your sort of day-to-day responsibilities look like as a CPO currently? What sort of stuff do you do, just briefly?
Well, owning the product strategy, given the fact that it's an interim role, you basically need to make sure that things are paved towards the right direction. That the company has already taken a lot of steps towards. It's being a good partner to your to the rest of the C-suite, and make sure that they get also support for them to do their role, and obviously make sure to take care of the team and the necessary structures for them to deliver on the business objectives that are set. Um, it's bringing the transparency to the board. So it has a lot of different dimensions. Participating in like M&A activities, partnerships. So it has a lot of interesting dimensions as a role itself.
Right, and like data, data analysis and product strategy is nothing new to the kinds of things you care about, and this sort of leads into our discussion today, or our conversation today. But to refer back to a LinkedIn post you wrote when last we spoke, basically, you were stressing something about the importance of needing a product operations strategy, particularly for this second phase, or this post first phase COVID-19 thing. I want to say the last phase, but let's just go with second for now. But the importance of data in that, and the importance of data in product strategy for a company really surviving. But just to sort of make sure we're on the same page around the language here, how do you understand from a product operations view first phase and second phase? Like, in what ways do they differ?
Well, the first phase has been all about securing the employees' health, um, digitally transform your operations as a company so that you can continue to deliver the value to the customers. It is obviously about cash preservation, taking care of your customers, make sure that they can operate to their maximum ability through the value that you deliver to them, taking care of them. So that has been the focus of most companies, if not all, during the first phase, and all the scenario planning and all the actions was literally securing those parts. Um, the second phase now, where we are at, is basically trying to navigate through the uncertainty that we are that we are within. There is a definitely business impact in the market. The behaviors of the customers is has changed a lot. You cannot sort of take for granted your previous understandings in order to know how to move forward. So this second phase is about making sure that you address your those concerns, but also perhaps figure out what the new opportunities are that arise from this situation. And that's very different than before.
And what are some of the main challenges in the second phase? You're already talking about like consumer behavior changing, but what are some of the other main or biggest challenges in thinking about a product strategy in the second phase?
Well, there is retention continues to be top of mind. Going out of this phase, your investments and the board and everybody would be looking at how did you navigate in maintaining the customers you've had. Um, so you need to make sure that you cater to the feeling of safety for your customers. So you need to make sure that you continuously deliver that value in a consistent way, as well as making sure that they understand the value that you deliver to them. But in terms of growth opportunities, it is being much more scrutinizing where you would invest, where your development efforts go, whether it is, whether you can optimize also the way that you can acquire customers now in a very different way than before. People are in their homes, for example, and previously you could call them to cold call them and try to access them and in making appointments for demos and the sort. And now they're at home. Some of the communication channels are gone for you. So digital acquisition, digital onboarding start to become very, very important. And these are aspects that definitely a product organization can help with. Um, Upsell starts to become increasingly uh, uh, more important in these phases because acquisition is indeed harder. Um, and then obviously figuring out if you have a healthy financial position, whether there is opportunities out there for you in either in acquisitions, possibly because the runway of some companies has been shortened. They have revenues. They do have. There are healthy companies, uh, but simply their financial cash flow state may not be long enough for them. So it's definitely something to see whether together you can get out of with a much higher value from this situation.
So given some of those challenges and sort of focus points for moving into this phase two in terms of like your strategy with your product, how are you currently thinking about product operation strategy? And I think you can probably talk from your just to your experience at Binder, but also how you're sort of moving forward now. What are some of the things that are part of that strategy for you?
Right. So the reason I actually had taken the role at Binder in as a VP product operations, coming from a CTO CPO background, was because indeed I have a huge respect and understand the value that um, um, of a product, of a data managed product strategy, data led product strategy. So when Shelley Perry, the CEO of Binder at the time, spoke to me about how strongly she feels in setting up her product organization within Binder, that lives and breathes and gets informed and insights from the data. Um, Obviously, that was a no brainer, that I could step in and help there. I was very fortunate to work also with Kevin Brown, has been the CPO at Binder, who shares that feeling. So um, I stepped in to set up product operations there, and I continuously also do the same now here at ReceiptBank, because there are three basic questions that you can address with product operations. One is, are you doing the things that you're set out to do? Um, are the things that you are doing working well for you? Which is something that is very often forgotten, to be monitored closely. And even more interesting, are you doing actually the thing that you should be doing? And these are the aspects that product operations really help product leaders to answer and make decisions with.
So just on your point of having a data led product strategy, why is that so important? What does having a data led strategy enable someone to do?
Um, so navigating with a gut feeling is a natural start point. Every founder goes by that. Um, Having the data to confirm your assumptions and the combination of data by which you can confirm the return of your investments starts to become it has a benefit at any moment in any product organization and company, but it is even more so important with a scale up organization because the stakes are so much higher. So an investment, a good judgment on the investment that you need to be making and the decisions you and the on the options you have can give you huge business impact on whether you will stay on course with your growth, on whether you will optimize for EBITDA, on driving basically the different phases that you're in as an organization. And it is the combination of the data that is important. Combining finance data, engineering data, product usage data, support data. So it is that uh, that is what the product operation caters.
So can you give a or can you think of a concrete example from past experience just to illustrate the impact that a certain piece of data maybe had on a product strategy?
Sure, sure. One of the key things you can do is actually, as you lay out your options for your roadmap, is figure out which initiatives have what kind of business impact. Is it retention? Is it growth? Is it cost optimization? Depending on your parameters or what it is that you want to drive towards, that's a first layer that you can make choices on. Then, by looking at the return on investment, the actual size of the business impact between the different initiatives, um, uh, by working out your business cases, you can actually make prioritization for those efforts in order to drive a roadmap that maximizes the effect of your investments.
And I think just to clarify, because arguably gut feeling can still be considered data. So when you talk about data, what kinds of things do you actually mean? What does that data look like?
Um, uh, uh, I will give you several examples. You would be looking on your finance systems and on your bookings. You would be looking at the ARR and attribute that ARR to initiatives and to customer requests. Um, you would be therefore combining your finance data also with your CRM system data to understand where their requests are coming from what kind of segment of your customers are those requests are coming from, where your business is performing the best. You would be combining data from your support systems to understand feature requests and issues. What's the ARR connected to that so that you can make prioritization, um, not on a gut feeling, not on who yells the most on a meeting, but literally when you're looking at would you turn your attention to A or to B, you can see what is the ARR connected to A and what's the ARR connected to B, so you can make sane decisions. You would be looking at usage data, user behavior data. Um, you would be definitely looking at engineering data. Where is your engineering effort spent? Is it because you might be having the impression that your business is focused on growth, but if your engineering effort is invested on retention, then you will stagnate. You will not be having the business impact that you need based on your targets. Um, Uptime, so operational metrics, um, understanding the financial risk of your operations. Yeah, so it's a combination from multiple areas that gives context to be able to make decisions.
And I think something you said just now really speaks to the difference it makes between, or the difference data makes to those kinds of decisions. Because if you make a decision on gut feel and it proves that it was the wrong decision, then all you can really say from that is my gut feeling was wrong, and the conversation ends. Whereas if you use data and you were wrong, you actually have, now you have something to talk about, because now you're like, okay, well, the data it looks like the data said something different.
I have recently had a conversation with one of my PM product managers, and he was initially prioritizing a certain set of initiatives, but when he did his business case analysis, he understood actually that his priorities needed to be completely different, um, totally a different outcome from what he anticipated in the beginning. And that sparked a lot of conversation as to how do we go about making decisions, which is a healthy conversation to have also within a product organization.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you've spoken about all the some of the challenges, and then also the importance of why you hold a data driven strategy so important. So actually diving into the practicalities of like how to start using data in your product operations strategy. I assume based on what you just said, doing a business case analysis is one of the first steps. Am I right?
The very very first step in being able to do that is first of all knowing where you have data, being able to have the right data, clean data, and start to combine data means that you need to bring the data together. As long as your systems are isolated, one, it's painful, and secondly, you don't get the right level of insights.
So how do you actually know where you have data, and how do you start accessing that?
So you would typically understand. First of all, need to know what the problem you want to be addressing on is. Secondly, is to speak with your partners in the other departments, because product does not, or engineering does not generate all the data that drive those kinds of insights. So it's partnering with finance, it's partnering with support, making sure that you bring alliances on the table, and together have a plan as to how you contribute to those insights. Um, so that's how you find the data where it is. Um, and then also, when you start using it, very often you figure out that you're missing a certain perspective. And an example that I've had in the past, um, um, the product ops was using a very specific data source, and therefore interpreting the nature of the data, like the size of the company. Um, and then you understand that you are actually need to have other metadata to give you the nature of the customer segment. So you can come to a realization as you try to make the insights. So it's an interesting journey to go about.
And how do you know what data you need? Do you have any advice for sort of deciding based on what you're trying to do, what data you need? And I think like just the first thing that comes to mind is you actually need to have a really good idea of your goal or your question, because otherwise you could basically get any data and it could tell you a whole bunch of things.
I agree totally. There are typically three, um, types of start points depending on where your 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 the status of your business is,
Right.
um, and the challenge that you're facing is. But I would say the first thing is looking at your finance. Um, do your ARR attribution to your product and the product modules, understand literally your product financials is a first step. ARR and cost, you need to understand the profitability of the things that you're working with. That's literally a key insight that any CPO needs to be having. Then it's about understanding where your investments are in terms of your engineering efforts. It is obviously part of your cost structure and a big part of it. You need to understand the context of those investments. I'm talking here beyond looking at the velocity at Jira, right? It's about understanding the business impact that the engineering team brings to your business, and it's a useful tool to align your product team and your engineering team together to the same goal. They also better understand their contribution, so it's a very useful tool for technical leaders as well.
Right.
Um,
Could you just tell me a bit more about that context? Like, what kind of context does it help you understand, and why is that so important? Like, why is that such useful data?
so by tagging, basically by categorizing the type of engineering investment, you would be able to know whether you are paying off technical debt, whether you're paying sales debt, whether it is um, uh, growth investment, so therefore innovation, or whether you are doing your keep your lights on kind of effort. It's a very good indication, a health check as to whether you are doing the things that you should be doing.
So that's just to then to summarize there, the sort of financial data there is a very clear way of thinking about the profitability of your roadmap, and that look of the investments, or the look at the investments and where you're engineering or categorizing your engineering investment is a way for you to better do, as you said, a like prioritization health check on what do we what for example, what features are we looking at, and does that align with where most of our investments are currently going?
Absolutely. I have had in the past a situation where business was thinking we're working on growth and that we're investing in innovation. But when you literally look at the resource allocation where they were spending their time, you see a substantial investment, unexpected investment, um, on customization, custom work for customers, sales debt. So that starts firing up conversations. Are we actually having the product in a scalable product, or do we have a good product market fit? If there is so much custom work and sales debt, are we selling also to guide the sales team? Are we selling what we have? So it's a really interesting perspective to add to this C-suite table to really understand what it is that the company is doing.
And is there a useful way, or do you have any advice for a useful way to see that data? Like, do you just drop it in an Excel sheet? Is it like, what's a good way to visualize that?
I have found that bringing the data together helps tremendously because it allows you to combine it in different ways and enrich the data and process and clean it. I have used in the past data lake, which is nothing more than literally it's a concept of bringing the data together basically in one place, and there are so many BI tools there that can help you actually create views and insight over the combined joint data there.
Awesome. And then I think you said there were three starting points. The one was finance, the other was investment. Was there a third one that you wanted to?
Yeah, that the third one is users behavior. really understanding the how the different segments of your customers behave within your application, and combining that with the financial insights makes it easier for you to prioritize where you need to be doing product improvements.
And how do you get your user behavior? Is it a thing of like doing user research? Are there other ways that you can access that? And I assume there's also different kinds of user behavior.
Correct. So you would have very often qualitative research.
Mhm.
In a sense, you would consider in the early stages the CEO speaking, going out there and speaking to the customer is a way of qualitative research, right? He collects insights. Um, what when I'm talking about user behavior and combining that with finance, I'm mostly talking about user behavior tracking. So using software solutions, many out there that allow you to actually track events that as they occur when the user interacts with your application, and understand their user journey, understand what the user does when they are in certain conditions with your application, and that in the context of where the user comes from, whether it's a role or the type of company. That actually gives more insights as to why do they behave the way they do.
Interesting. That makes me think of a conversation I had with the CEO of it's almost like a engagement and video conferencing tool called Toasty. Um, they their platform used to be very offline, or basically just offline. And when COVID-19 hit, they had to move their engagement platform online. And in order to uh, ship a live working version quickly, they actually used user behavior on their offline app to pick the features that people engage with the most. And they said, let's build that first. And then we can worry about the rest later.
Absolutely, it's such a valuable insight. Such and from and you can can help you prioritize. It can help you improve also what you have released, in your onboarding, your sign up, your conversion rates, especially in SaaS businesses, is super vital. But also purely so when a product organization works to deliver a certain functionality, they should not just deliver it and never look back. It's about also understanding, did it actually deliver what it was set out to deliver? So it's super essential to understand that, and at some point also make decisions as to what it is that you need to discontinue.
Absolutely. And I know you said there's a lot of software out there to do user behavior tracking, but can you just mention a few that you've engaged with?
There are, you can use tools like Amplitude and Mixpanel to do your to start doing your tracking, but you can also set it up with through a data hub like Segment that feeds into tools like Mixpanel and Amplitude and the sort, um, giving you a little bit more flexibility in using, actually that's another interesting dimension, using the user behavior to deliver value to the users, because you can feed the same data to tools like walkthrough tools, user feedback tools, so you can use the same data events that you're tracking to be able to deliver functionality in your product. Super valuable.
So the only other thing which we haven't really spoken about, and I think we can use this to sort of round up everything we've said so far. But something you've said that you yourself are doing with your strategy is actually combining data, and that's a critical way of making it useful, or actually being able to, now that you have the data, apply it to your actual product strategy. So can you just tell me more about how you think about combining data and applying that to a product strategy usefully?
Yeah, I can give you some example of that. So um, When finance looks at the data, when a finance ops person would look at the finance data, they look at it from a corporate finance perspective. They don't necessarily look about what exactly is being sold. That dimension of what exactly is sold, which product package, which add-ons. These are the dimensions that the product ops and the product organization needs to carefully look at and make decisions about further investment or not to certain aspects, but also drive pricing and packaging decisions, which is also another interesting problem area for product management and product strategy. Um, Similarly, sales ops would normally be looking again on whether on the performance of a sales representative, right, and optimize that. What a product ops operation would be looking at that sales data is drilling into much detail level on closed lost reasons and closed won reasons, and from their surface what's important to be catered in the roadmap, understand the competition. So there is so much to gain from looking at from a different pair of glasses over the same data and the same data sources. And when you combine actually the context, you get to have it to a better decision making process.
So just to paint a picture of an example where combining data might surface a difficult problem. For example, if you're looking at cost optimization on a finance side, and there's a particular feature build or whatever, which costs a lot, but that your user behavior says is really important. How do you begin to think about looking at both of those pieces of data and actually moving forward with a roadmap?
Well, an example again from the past, looking at finance data where on add-ons, right? Um, Traditionally, companies start to build add-ons and they get to have their own life. Um, that doesn't mean that they necessarily are profitable. They would require maintenance, so you need to understand the profitability of those add-ons. In a certain situation, we could see that um, the usage of certain investments on those add-ons was not there. So the companies would have the add-ons, but they would not use them. So since they were getting discounts on them, another interesting dimension there, they were not bothered from having them. So what we needed to look then is, okay, if we were to discontinue this add-on, what is the ARR that is connected to the customers that have it? Because obviously you don't want to also disturb the customers. So it's not just the value of the add-on, but it's the total value of the customer, and then cooperate with CS to properly manage a discontinuation cycle. So again, it's getting insights and partnering well with the rest of the organization in navigating the realization of those decisions.
And that's an interesting example because I think if you looked at any of those pieces of data in isolation, the strategy you would have taken would have been completely different and potentially completely wrong. Um, so exactly, exactly. So then, just as a last point, like for someone who is maybe struggling with data combinations or really combining data, do you have like a principle or a consideration or a piece of advice that really helps with working through data effectively?
I would say, first of all, start small. Start with the very basic systems. I would say probably your finance system, or your, depending on how your company operates, perhaps your CRM system, something like Salesforce. Combine that with Jira, would, or any other issue tracking system that you have already gives you very nice insights in making decisions. So start small, but start. That's what I would say. Start small, but start. Make sure that you are certain about the correctness of your data, the accuracy. That otherwise, whatever decisions you're making are also questionable.
And then what has been the biggest lesson for you in your career about the impact that data has on a product operation strategy? Like, what is the sort of standout lesson for you of its impact there?
Um, Start. That's one. And the second is question the correctness of the data. Find ways to QA how the data roll up. Figure out whether you're also making that your assumptions and your insights over data you can trust.
So, I mean, this is a Pandora's box of information. I think I could talk to you about this for so much longer. There's so many intricacies of this, and so many examples of how it can really play out in real life. But thank you for sharing all of this. I would love to continue this conversation with you. Maybe we can take another approach or another angle from it. But like I said, thanks for your insights, and I think this is incredibly useful for going into the second phase of a global pandemic and how companies are responding to their environments. I think it's been really useful to chat to you, and it's such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for inviting me and for the opportunity to talk about something that I'm really passionate about.
And like I said, definitely going to have you back. I think there's a lot more that we can unpack here, and especially with the uncertainty of the times ahead, I think this is going to become more and more important. But cool. Look after yourself, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you. Bye.